I've done a few videos on Kaveh in the past, where I analyzed his viability in several team setups. In this video, I will be focusing on the way you should build him mainly, highlighting artifact and weapon investment based on the team he's being used on. As I said in the past, Kaveh's main role is being a bloom driver, either for Nilou teams or his own bloom teams. In either scenario, the damage concept is the same, as the team focuses around the bloom's output, so the builds Kaveh should have are also the same. A common question for bloom teams is whether you should build your characters with elemental mastery or not. This is a good question for a character like Kaveh on bloom teams, since all of the abilities in his kit just scale off attack, and on these team lineups he doesn't have access to elemental mastery scaling reactions other than bloom. In fact, even though Kaveh's raw damage output is considerably below average for a non-fielder, it's not irrelevant either, as it can reach around 120,000 per rotation with an artifact build which invests on attack and crit. On the other hand, if you fully invest on elemental mastery, that amount drops to 50,000 per rotation, which is basically Bennett level. For that reason, the value of elemental mastery over other offensive stats entirely depends on how many blooms he is able to trigger during a rotation. Predicting the amount of blooms an unreleased character will be able to proc will be an impossible task, but what I can do is analyze how his damage varies on different builds depending on the amount of blooms triggered by him. I've done this comparison for both Nilou and Nilou-less teams to account for the difference in reaction bonus damage. The builds I've analyzed for Kaveh are a full elemental mastery build and a mixed build with some elemental mastery and attack investment. Both builds include an energy recharge sands on him, and the combination of the Gilded Dream Set and the mailed flower weapon, since they're options that give him elemental mastery while not ignoring attack investment. I've found full attack investment options to be inferior overall. Both builds also include Nahida's elemental mastery buffs and Dendro resonance effects. Assuming 25 blooms per rotation and an ownership of 20% of those blooms by Kaveh, he ends up triggering just 5 blooms per rotation himself. In this scenario, the attack build is considerably superior on both Nilou-less and Nilou teams. The reason is that mixed build scenarios still end up reaching respectable levels of elemental mastery overall, so their bloom output is still quite good, although inferior to the full elemental mastery build of course. Now, let's assume an AoE scenario where you end up getting 50 blooms per rotation, 10 of those being owned by Kaveh. The difference between the two builds is now minimal, as the superior elemental mastery investment naturally scales higher the more bloom triggers Kaveh manages to get. In particular, the exact value of bloom triggers to reach for Kaveh's full elemental mastery build to become superior damage-wise is 13 per rotation, which is definitely high-end, but might be attainable in extreme AoE situations. There is also another factor to consider when it comes to stat investment, namely Kaveh's healing capabilities, which are tied to his elemental mastery amount. In fact, on a cooldown of 0.5 seconds, Kaveh will recover an HP amount equal to 300% of his elemental mastery if he gets hit by blooms. Throughout the 12 seconds rotations, with his full elemental mastery build, this would amount to a massive 72,000 healing if he gets 24 healing ticks. Even assuming a more pessimistic 12 healing ticks, that would still amount to a respectable 36,000. On the other hand, the values for the mixed elemental mastery build will be 36,000 and 18,000 healing respectively, which might still be enough based on what you need, but still objectively way inferior compared to the full elemental mastery build, so it's something you have to keep in mind. Either way, statistically speaking, Kaveh should be an extremely durable driver for bloom teams. Also, considering he can boost his own healing and reduce the damage taken through blooms through his Constellation one. All in all, the investment choice for Kaveh will depend on the exact context you're using him on, and also what you would like from him from an utility standpoint. Artifact sets wise, while I previously analyzed him with the Gilded Dream set, As that's his best option for maximum possible output, I would actually suggest using the Instructor Set on him, assuming somebody else is already holding the Deepwood set on the team for dendro resistance reduction purposes. In fact, as a non-fielder, Kaveh should generally be able to reliably maintain the Instructor buff for the whole team, which is a nice increase for bloom damage. On the other hand, he won't lose much of his damage output, as the set is also quite beneficial for his own bloom damage, and is only really detrimental for attack build Kaveh, while an elemental mastery build Kaveh with Instructor is basically equal to the Gilded Dreams variant damage-wise. Weapons-wise, Mailed Flower is a no-brainer, as it's the weapon that gives him the most elemental mastery and also maintains pretty high attack investment. Alternatives would be Sacrificial and Favonius weapons if you feel he is lacking in energy for your specific rotation, or Aquamarine if you have characters on the team that can benefit from the attack-related support it provides. For teams where he gets some quicken uptime, attack-based builds are generally the way to go, since it just doesn't get many quicken procs during a rotation. For this reason, elemental mastery weapons are slightly weaker here compared to bloom teams, but Mailed Flower still ends up being a great 4-star option, as it only gets beaten by a Refinement 5 Lithic Blade, assuming there is a League UA character on the team. If you extend the conversation to 5 stars, then Wolf's Gravestone, Unforged, Redhorn, and the Beacon of the Red Sea also end up being better, with the latter being his best in slot overall. Still, while the relative difference is noticeable, the actual damage difference between different weapons is small, because his damage per rotation is just not that good in the big scheme of things. This is even more true for roles such as Quick Bloom Driver or Burgeon Driver, where it gets even less quicken uptime or none at all. Basically, if you use Kaveh outside of bloom teams, investing on his damage becomes less important than just maintaining his elemental burst consistency every rotation, especially on non-quicken teams, so you should just prioritize energy recharge investment, and then you can settle for cheap, free-to-play friendly builds for his damage. Artifacts-wise, Gilded Dreams still works in this context, but it's more or less equal to the Gladiator set damage-wise, so pick whatever set has the best substats for you specifically. Still, build analysis on Kaveh for bloomless teams just highlighted how much of a poor fit he is for these setups, as his damage just won't ever be high enough to justify 12 seconds of field time on Quicken or Quick Bloom, and his application is below average for an on-fielder, so you can definitely find better options around overall. I'm done for today. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you next time!